I had been looking forward to this mountain biking trip for weeks. The trails of Colorado always brought me a sense of peace and relaxation, a perfect antidote to a long and exhausting work week. The sun hung high in the crisp, clear sky as I pedaled my way through the winding paths, surrounded by the beauty of nature. As I emerged from a dense thicket of pines, I found myself in a vast open meadow. The sheer expanse of it was breathtaking, and I couldn't help but stop to admire the tranquil scenery. The world was silent except for a gentle rustle of the grass in the breeze, and I felt truly at one with nature. But then, something broke the serenity. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a flash of bright blue on the edge of the tree line. Squinting against the sun, I peered closer and my heart quickened as I realized it was a figure. It was a clown. My mind struggled to comprehend the surreal sight. A clown, standing there on the edge of this peaceful meadow, wearing all flamboyant blue and pink striped suit. I couldn't fathom what a clown was doing out here in the wilderness. The absurdity of it was unsettling. Fear started to grow within me, urging me to move. I pedaled faster, my heart now drumming with unease. But as I made my way across the meadow, I sensed movement from the corner of my eye again, and when I glanced over, my heart plummeted. 5 more figures emerged from the tree line, all in clown costumes. Then they started running towards me, their faces all with menacing grins. Each of them held a weapon, knives, a machete, an axe, all glinting in the sunlight. My instincts screamed at me to escape, and I pedaled harder, my legs burning as I pushed myself to the limit. The clowns were closing the gap, their masks only growing more horrifying as they neared. The thought of what might happen if they reached me was unbearable. I raced back into the welcoming shadows of the forest, the echoing thud of my heart almost drowning out the sounds of their heavy, frenzied footsteps. They were just yards behind me, and the adrenaline pumping through my veins was the only thing keeping me going. I couldn't turn back now. I was committed to completing the 6-mile loop, and there was no other way. Fear gripped me, but I had to keep moving forward. As I continued down the trail, I frantically tried to call for help on my phone. My fingers fumbled with the screen, but despair washed over me as I saw the no service message. With no other options, I had to pedal faster and harder, each breath a desperate gasp. The clowns were still pursuing me, and I couldn't shake the image of their faces and those weapons they carried. The trail seemed endless, and I prayed for a miracle. Finally, I reached the parking area where I had left my truck. I skidded to a stop, dismounting my bike with shaking legs. The clowns were nowhere in sight, and a mixture of relief and dread washed over me. What had been their intent? Had they simply reveled in terrifying me? I quickly reported the encounter to the authorities. They assured me they would investigate, but the passage of time turned my memories into a haze of fear and uncertainty. I never heard anything further about the incident, and it left me with lingering questions and unease. I've never gone back to those trails, my mind haunted by the encounter of those clowns. In my heart, I'm convinced that if they had caught me, they would have done something unspeakably terrible. I can only hope that they never cross paths with another unsuspecting soul out there in the woods. The streets of Portland, Oregon were deserted as I walked home from work. It was 1:30 a.m., and I was eager to reach the safety of my apartment after a long and tiring shift. As I approached an alleyway, I slowed my pace as I became aware of a presence against the wall across the street. My heart skipped as I saw a man standing there, dressed in a clown costume, the bright colors contrasting sharply with the darkness of the alley. Nervousness filled me as I quickened my steps. My hand instinctively reached into my purse for my pepper spray. The clown seemed motionless, but something about his presence creeped me out big time. I walked on, glancing back to find that the clown was now about half a block behind me. I panicked as I realized he was following me. With each step I took, my heart pounded faster, and my imagination ran wild with dreadful possibilities. 3 more blocks passed in a blur, my fast-paced walk gradually morphing into a panicked trot. The clown persisted, his painted face hidden in the shadows of the oversized wig and floppy shoes. I strained my eyes to see if he was carrying anything, and that's when I noticed he was talking into a phone or a walkie-talkie. Terrified and desperate, I broke into a run. My apartment was still 5 blocks away, and I felt the burning urgency of escape. My steps echoed on the empty streets as I glanced over my shoulder, expecting to see the clown gaining on me. But he wasn't there. For a moment, a glimmer of hope ran through me. Maybe he had given up the chase. I slowed down, gasping for breath, my heart still beating fast. I had almost reached my driveway and the street behind me remained silent. I let out a sigh of relief and finally stopped, turning towards my house. As I reached into my pocket to fish out my keys, a black van pulled up beside me. The sudden appearance of the vehicle sent my heart into overdrive, and I barely had time to react as 2 figures dressed as clowns jumped out of the van and lunged at me. They tried to grab me, their faces concealed by grotesque masks, and their laughter was menacing and filled with madness. Instinct took over, and my hand shot out. My keys gripped tightly in my fist. I thrust them at the nearest clown, striking him across the face with a painful thud. He let out a startled cry, and I took advantage of the moment to grab my pepper spray from my purse. In a flurry of motion, I released a cloud of burning mist, aiming it directly at their faces. They screamed and recoiled, their laughter now replaced by desperate cries of agony. I seized the opportunity to wrench myself free and sprinted towards my apartment. The driver of the van, seeing his companions incapacitated, wasted no time. He revved the engine, the other clowns jumped in, and the van peeled away. Shaken and trembling, I locked myself inside my apartment, my heart still racing. The clowns were never caught, even after I reported the incident to the police. Their disturbing presence still haunts me, as does the knowledge that they know where I live. Nights have become an ordeal, and every unexpected sound or shadow triggers a fresh wave of fear. I dread the thought of them returning. I can only hope that they remain a memory from the past, never to darken my doorstep again. The weekend before Halloween, a group of us friends decided to venture off into the woods. The abandoned bus, nestled 4 miles from the edge of the housing development, had been a notorious party spot. We had some psychedelic mushrooms with us, planning to have a pre-Halloween trip during the autumnal season. As we arrived at the abandoned bus, we wasted no time and took the mushrooms. We spread blankets inside the dilapidated van, sharing stories about our favorite horror movies. The trip slowly took hold, and we laughed, lost in the surreal world our altered minds were weaving. For a while, the van felt like our sanctuary. But the mushrooms had us in their grip, and the adventure bug bit us hard. We decided to explore the woods. The cool autumn air and the leaves underfoot added to the eeriness of the forest. While making our way to a nearby river, I saw it first, a figure dressed in a clown costume lurking behind a tree about 50 feet away. I couldn't believe my eyes and initially brushed it off as a hallucination. Then my friends saw it too. We halted in our tracks, whispering nervously to each other, asking if we were all witnessing the same thing. We were. The clown simply stood there. We stood and stared at it for about 10 seconds. Then, as if melting into the shadows, it vanished behind the tree. One of the guys in our group, emboldened by the mushrooms and probably hoping to dispel the fear, yelled for the clown to come out. When it didn't respond, he grabbed a large stick he found on the ground and approached the tree. We held our breath as he peered behind it, only to find nothing. The clown had disappeared without a trace. We questioned our senses, blaming it on the mushrooms, but collectively, we couldn't deny that we'd seen it. With unease in the air, we decided to head back to the abandoned van to gather our things and leave the forest. As we reached the van, shock overcame us. All our belongings were gone, and in their place was a note written in red ink. "I will be seeing you again." We were terrified. We had no idea who or what had taken our things or left that ominous message. Scared and bewildered, we didn't hesitate. We sprinted the rest of the way out of the woods, back to our friend's house. We watched a horror movie and recounted the bizarre encounter. The atmosphere in the room was tense as we debated whether the clown was real or someone dressed up playing a prank. 4 days have passed since that incident, but the note continues to haunt us. We can't shake the feeling that the clown, if it was a person, meant what they wrote. Halloween is just days away, and we are filled with anxiety, dreading the unknown. We hope it was just a strange encounter brought on by the mushrooms, but a lingering unease persists. We'll keep our guard up on Halloween night, unsure if it'll be a trick, a treat, or something far more sinister.